Hey there, Facebook. I'm just clicking the invite button here for a moment. Try and give folks a chance to tune in case they're interested in a bah humbug or two. You could probably tell by the sound of my voice that I'm still not feeling 100%. I am not suffering from anxiety, though. For all you people out there that were trying to diagnose me with anxiety, you have no idea what you're talking about. Coughing up all kinds of green snot, but it feels like my fever broke. The hospital said I didn't have a fever, but I think they were lying to me, honestly, because I could feel it. Just putting my hand on my own face, I could feel it. Plus, I'd been feeling all flushed, so anyhow, I'm feeling a little bit better. I don't feel like I'm feverish at this point, but still coughing up boogers and blowing my nose and a little bit of a sore throat from. It's not like a cough where you have a tickle throat where you feel like you're gonna cough all the time. It's more like that feeling of having phlegm lodged in your throat and you want to kind of clear your throat and hack it up. So I've been spitting out a whole bunch of slime and trying not to eat sugars and feeling pretty sick. But, I'm taking this golden honey with turmeric, black pepper, and cinnamon. It's local raw honey, so it's definitely helping and feeling a little bit better. I'm not one of these people who supports consumerism. In fact, I feel like consumerism is part of the downfall of the world, especially because, for the most part, consumerism comes with entitlement. And entitlement is only really attained through a certain level of ignorance of others' suffering. And so, my Christmas isn't going to be full of brand new items. I'm not into buying a whole bunch of new things. I'm not into, supporting all of this throwaway society. And, if that's what you're into, I'm not trying to condemn you, but that's not what I'm into. So, there are a few people out there that have sent me a few really meaningful gifts. I received a Christmas card, which made me feel really good. And someone else is sending me a used laptop, so I'll be able to edit my videos and work on a couple of projects that I'm writing. So there's some gifts coming to me that are really meaningful. Someone sent me some coffee. So, I'm receiving a few gifts here and there. And really, I feel a certain amount of fortune to be able to spend my Christmas, enjoy my Christmas outside of jail. Because there are people sitting in jail right now. People who didn't do any crimes, that are innocent, or that they haven't been brought to trial. That they're sitting in jail waiting for trial. Or they're not even waiting for trial. Their trial date hasn't been set. They just can't afford their bond. So they're sitting in jail on a bond that's outside of their budget. I'm fortunate. I'm really fortunate. And it's not hard for me to recognize it because I live this life, so I feel good about it. But I feel like a lot of folks don't understand how fortunate I am because of the amount of comfort that you get to live with. Your comfort allows you to be distant from the suffering of others. And I've been saying this a little bit on and off for a while. is that once you're insulated by comfort, it allows you to distance yourself from the suffering of others. So, you know, this building here that I'm standing in front of, it's one of these modern loft buildings. You know, they build these things to allow specifically what I'm talking about. These types of loft buildings have built into them, you know, very boutique, sort of bourgeoisie services, so that you can shop for your organic food, go to your Pilates class, and, you know, have substructure parking, so that when you want to go out into public, you never have to be exposed to the lower classes. You get to live an insular lifestyle that essentially allows you to distance yourself from any sort of suffering. And, you know, that's something, in my estimation, that's really bad for our country. It's bad for societies in general, to distance yourself from the suffering of others. And, you know, if you look at some of the ascended masters, you know, if you read texts from some of the people who have done the real healing work in this world, you'll find that they lived very humble lifestyles. They're not out there driving around in Maseratis. You know, they're not living in loft apartments. Most of the people who are doing the real healing work of this world lived with the streets. They lived with the vagabonds. They lived with the, you know, they lived with the meek. And so, you know, I feel good about the life that I live. And I feel really fortunate to have the sorts of people in my life that I do, and to have the opportunities that I have. And all of my possessions are very few. I have very, very few possessions. You know, I can load all my possessions onto my back and hike out of here if I wanted to. So, you know, I consider myself wealthy because I have experiences. The things in life, in my estimation, aren't what makes life good. What makes life good is experiences. Because once you have an experience, you have that experience with you forever. You can't lose an experience. If you share an experience with someone today, you will, not only will you have that experience, but the person who you shared that experience with also will have it with them forever. But if you give somebody a brand new iPhone, or you give someone like a Tickle Me Elmo or something like that, eventually the battery's going to run out. You know, they're not going to have a charge. They're not going to want to carry it, or part of it's going to break, and they're going to throw it away. Or maybe they'll get caught in the fires and their thing's going to burn down. So, you know, it's not really in our culture, not really in our society to share experiences. We're taught that sharing items is the way. But, you know, I just want to encourage you guys, if you can, share some experiences with people. Find a way to share experiences in life. Find people who you're interested in sharing experiences with, and be a part of a world that is experience-based. Because this materialistic, item-based reality is part of what's wrong with our planet right now. Because if everybody had a brand new iPhone, if everybody had a brand new computer, if everyone had a Maserati, our whole planet would die really quickly. We can't afford it with the natural resources that we have. We can't afford Christmas the way that we experience it right now. And you know, part of that is insulating ourselves inside of comfort from the people who actually pay the price for the items that we feel are necessary. An example of that would be Foxconn. If you remember a few years back, Apple has their iPhones made by this corporation Foxconn in China, and Foxconn does not treat their employees well. And as a result of that, what ends up happening is the employees were throwing themselves to their death. The employees would rather die than continue making iPhones for consumers. They were killing themselves because they were that desperate to try and escape the servitude that they're forced into so that we could have cell phones. So, it's one of those things that my comfort, as little comfort as I have in this world, my comfort largely allows me to be insulated from that sort of suffering. But, the types of awareness that I have and the interest that I have in learning allowed me to develop that understanding and cultivate that awareness. And I'm hoping you guys come to that awareness too, that the consumer behaviors that you might be embracing today could be contributing to the suffering of others. One of my friends that I deeply respect talks about slave chocolate. Slave chocolate. And it breaks her heart. It breaks my heart because small children are enslaved for the chocolate that's probably sitting in your stocking. And I'm not here to try and begrudge you your chocolate. If you need chocolate, God bless you, eat some chocolate. But understand that the comfort and ease that you might be investing yourself in can very easily be resulting in someone else's enslavement. As Americans, as citizens of the United States, or maybe you're actually a ward of the United States, because a lot of people who watch my videos are part of the reservation system, and they're property of the United States. They're not their own free citizens. They're belongings. You know what it's like to not have your own liberty, to not have your own say over what you want to do with your life because of the dictates of fascist America. So, I just want you guys to think a little bit about the effects of your consumerism, because on Christmas morning, that's when we indulge. And it's great. Indulge, be happy, live a celebratory moment. Live as many celebratory moments as you can. But bear in mind, while you're sitting in front of your hearth, while you're, drinking your hot cocoa or your eggnog, there's people out there that are suffering so that you could have that enjoyment. Don't live such a insulated life that you don't recognize the sacrifices others have made to allow you your comfort and ease. Because there are costs associated, human costs associated with our behaviors, and a lot of times we're able to distance ourselves from them and we don't recognize that. Part of my lifestyle is that I don't own a lot of new things. Like, the stuff that I own is secondhand stuff. And for the most part, I try and not go out and buy new things. I don't want to contribute to a culture of consumerism. I don't want to contribute to a culture of comfort. I don't want to contribute to a tax system. I have morals that are at a conflict with our cultural norms. And that's part of why I'm here trying to find ways to cope with the emotions that I have surrounding those morals. So, it's a very celebratory time for a lot of people, and I hope that you're with people who you love, and I hope that you're happy and healthy, well loved, warm, well cared for. But I just wanted to share this too, which is that here in Corvallis, Oregon, where I live right now, this town is largely empty because this is not one of the places that people go to for the holidays. This is a, it's a college town, for one, so all the students are gone for Christmas break. But then also the people who regularly live in this town have gone home to California or gone home to Iowa or New York or wherever they're from. The people, by and large, the people in this town don't think of this as the place where they spend their holidays. This place is empty. It's empty because it's not a destination. This is a place that people leave. Okay, behind me is the bridge where people come into town. You can see there's basically no traffic of people coming in. And then over here is the bridge where people leave town. And there's a steady stream of cars leaving town. So, this is sorry, there's some of that green goo I was telling you about. By and large, this is not the sort of place you want to be for Christmas. If you're, depending on who you are, you probably want to be somewhere else for the holidays. So anyway, I just wanted to come on for a minute and encourage you guys to consider your comfort, consider your ease and your wealth, and recognize, there's people living underneath this bridge. This is somebody's camp right here. It looks like maybe the cops came and took this person away because they're not in their camp. But, basically the point that I'm trying to make is that, don't be so insulated in your comfort that you don't recognize that people are suffering in this world. If you live a life of comfort and ease, don't just go outside of your bubble to be nice to people over the holidays. Don't try and end suffering and end poverty only during the holidays. It's going to take what I've been calling a potluck culture, a mutual aid culture, for us to lift each other up out of this, because the government is not coming to save you. The government is not coming to save you. They're cutting I'm kind of upset at this. I could do a whole stream on this. They're cutting entitlements. So what I consider the social safety net that's supposed to prevent people from having to live under bridges like this is being cut. They're cutting into that so they can give that money to billionaires. And the billionaires are exactly who I'm talking about, who live in that sort of comfort that insulates them from the suffering. Because of billionaires' entitlement, because of the money that's handed over to billionaires in the form of these tax cuts, corporate loopholes, bailouts. The latest thing that they're doing is they're allowing the billionaires to repatriate their money without having to pay taxes on it. So all the money that the billionaires hid in foreign countries so they wouldn't have to be taxed in the United States, they're allowing them a holiday to bring that money back into the United States without having to get taxed on it. So, the billionaire class lives a real insulated lifestyle where they don't ever have to look at the face of suffering of the people who are being disenfranchised and trod under by consumerism. And the price is being paid by the people at the bottom of society and the middle class. But by and large, the middle class, they're so insulated from suffering that they really don't need to worry about people like me. They really don't. In fact, their worry about people like me is that they might have to see me suffering. That's their worry. Not that they can't help or that they might have to help. They're more worried that they have to look at me. I was just talking with this guy that he organizes the homeless shelter here. And the homeless shelter was sued by a realtor because the location of it affected the property value of this realtor. So he was losing equity in his property because the homeless shelter was somewhere near his property. So he sued the homeless shelter for something like $3 million or $5 million, which forced the homeless shelter to move. And now they have like a temporary building to use just this year, but they're not going to be able to use it next year for the same reason. So these people who live in these types of loft buildings where it costs whatever, a couple $100,000 a year to live in it, they don't want to see people like me. They don't ever want to have to even look at me. And so, what happens is the ruling class, the class of people who are benefiting from the tax cuts, people who make over $250,000, that their tax cuts will not sunset. People who make less than $12,000, your tax cuts are going to sunset. You only get that for a short term. But the people living up there in the penthouses, those people, they don't ever want to have to look at me. They don't even ever want to have to see me. So the fact that I'm standing right here doing this live stream, they could call the cops on me. The cops could come over here and try and harass me for doing a live stream where the wealthy people have to even see me. And, that's just the nature of society that we live in right now, is that people don't want to have to see the suffering of others. And instead of actually working together to try and uplift one another and make our world better through mutual aid and a potluck culture where a rising tide lifts all ships, instead what we'll do is legislate out of sight the people who are actually suffering the real consequences of the corporate handouts in the form of the tax cuts. The tax cuts, the tax loopholes, accounting, they basically have high-powered lawyers, high-powered lobbyists, high-powered accountants that manipulate the numbers to make it so they never have to pay any money. Corporations like General Electric, Hewlett-Packard, Ford, these guys don't pay taxes. They never pay taxes. Go ahead and look at their tax returns. That's why Trump won't release his tax returns, is because he's been getting fat refunds. That's why. I'm 100% certain if he releases those tax returns, you're going to see that he's been getting millions of dollars in refunds. By passing the tax cut that they just passed, that tax cut, just in the form of the estate tax, is giving his family over $1 billion in tax relief. Just from the estate tax. Just from one portion of that tax cut, his family alone is getting over $1 billion. So, it's not really that complicated. But you have to want to see it. And most people want to live in this insulated reality where they never have to look at the types of issues that I'm talking about. And that's, honestly, that's why certain news organizations out there have the types of viewership that they do is because they keep people inside of that bubble. They allow them to remain insulated in their comfort and basically allow for a redacted version of truth, a redacted version of reality that doesn't actually reflect the suffering of real people. So, again, for the people who are just tuning in, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the real cost of Christmas. The real cost of Christmas is paid by folks who are enslaved. It's paid by people who are working in factories manufacturing Chinese Christmas trees, Chinese cell phones, Chinese lithium-ion batteries. And these people are genuinely suffering because they're actually enslaved. They don't have the freedom to leave their work compound. They live and work in the same place, and they don't have the freedom to ever leave. All they can do is try and make enough money to afford the job that they have. It's the same as that song, I ain't gonna work on Maggie's farm no more, or I ain't gonna sell my soul to the company store. You know, people don't realize it because we live this insulated life. The media lies. They don't tell you the real cost of Christmas. But all of those stocking stuffers from Hershey's and Nestle's, all of those stocking stuffers from Ghirardelli, they're coming from immoral, unethical sources of chocolate. And you know, all that hot chocolate, little children, small children are enslaved to make chocolate. And all the chocolate that's going to be eaten, that's being drunk, that chocolate is made by slaves. And, you know, I'm sorry if you live that sort of an insulated life that you don't have to recognize that. But put it down, you know? Just put it down. Eat a little bit less chocolate and buy it from an ethical source. You know? It's really difficult for me to ask you guys to do this because I'm not making any sacrifice. I don't have anything left to sacrifice. You know, I'm not spending money on Christmas presents. I might go and buy like a secondhand book to give to someone I love or something, but I don't have that kind of money to stop spending. I don't have money to stop spending. Like, the money that I have to stop spending is money that I spend on survival. You know, I don't buy a lot of chocolate. I can't remember the last time I bought chocolate, actually. If I think about it, I might be able to remember it. But seriously, that's how little, you know, whatever, like, that's my choice. I'm asking you guys to adjust your choices, but I'm not really adjusting mine because by and large, I've made the adjustments in my life. And, you know, I don't have that much left to set aside. But you know what? You know, for me, this is a big deal. There's a guy at the Starbucks this morning who couldn't afford a cup of coffee. And I gave him like one of my few dollars that I have so that he could have a cup of coffee because he didn't have any money for coffee. And, you know, he could have gone over to someone in the yuppie class because this town is a yuppie town. You know, this is not a hippie town. It's, you know, it's a bourgeois type of a town. And he could have gone over to one of the bourgeois class and asked them for money for a cup of coffee. But instead, since we're friends, he asked me for money. He asked me for 50 cents. He actually asked me for 40 cents. He's like, I need 40 cents for a cup of coffee. And I probably could have dug around in my backpack and pulled out my nickels and dimes, but I went into my wallet instead and gave him one of my last dollars, you know, because what am I going to spend money on? I'm going to spend money on like a, you know, like some sort of a French press, or like some candy cane thing, like some bourgeois teas. I'm not going to go and spend my money on this stuff. You know what I mean? The money that I do spend, I tend to spend it on food, is what I spend money on. I spend money on coffee and food. And, you know, it's a bizarre thing to me to consider all the people that they don't ever have to think like that. They don't ever have to think like that. You know, there's all of these people in this town that they never have to think like that. They only ever live in comfort and ease. Over here, I'll show you this. It's kind of hard to see, but right there, that's Benny's Donuts. Okay, that tells you about what kind of town this is. Benny's Donuts is a famous Hollywood donut company. All those movies where you see the big pink donut, that's Benny's Donuts. Okay, so this town has a Benny's Donuts in it. That's how bourgeois this town is. So anyway, you know, I try not to let these things go too long. And I really didn't have a whole lot to say. I just wanted to talk to you guys about my Christmas. I'm gonna be spending my Christmas at a homeless shelter. I probably would be at my camp, except I've been feeling a little bit sick. So since I've been feeling sick, then I decided to go into the shelter so I could be warm and try and heal up a little bit. Yeah, Benny's Donuts. Can't get a really good shot of it. But, you know, when I wake up in the morning, it's going to be with about 40 other guys that aren't with their families. There's Benny's Donuts. And when I do go to celebrate, I'm going to be celebrating at the hot springs. I'm going to go over the new year and be with my brother and sister and my daughter. And don't tell, but my cousin's coming. They don't know. My cousin's coming. He's going to be here, and I haven't told my brother and sister yet, so don't tell them. But going to hang out with some family, go to the hot springs, and you know, we're going to have a celebration, but it's not going to be big and fancy. We're going to be out in the wilderness and you know, have kind of a little family gathering out there, and that'll be next week. So, but in the meantime, you know, I am doing well. Like I said, I went to the emergency room and the doctor said that I probably have a viral infection, so should get over it in a couple days. I've been seeing doctors, dentists, and psychologists, because I'm really trying to invest myself in self-care right now. Ooh, I might come back here. Look at that. Might have to come back here. I'm a really good cook, and that's the type of cooking I like to do, is breakfast, lunch cooking. But anyway, I've been investing myself in self-care. I've been trying to take care of myself and just really recover a little bit, recover mentally, emotionally, physically, and I'm doing that. I've been spending time with enjoying time with my daughter, and you know, my life's really pretty good. as much as I live in a lifestyle that maybe you wouldn't enjoy, a lifestyle that's a little bit rougher than most of you are into, I still am really happy about the life that I live, and it's a lifestyle that's really light on the planet. You know, I don't consume a whole lot. I'm able to keep my needs really low. By keeping my needs low, then my fulfillment levels are high. It's kind of a strange concept for a lot of people, because a lot of people they keep their needs really high, and then by like needing panoramic train sets, then their fulfillment levels are low because they don't get as many panoramic train sets as they want. But I try and keep my needs really low, which keeps my fulfillment really high. Kind of different approach than a lot of people in this country take. But anyway, appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in. I hope you're having a great holiday season out there. And with all that said, I'll talk to you really soon. And have a great rest of your day.